believe anybody didn't think of it. I guess I thought of it because I'm from Massachusetts. During the Salem witch trials, they had several tests.
Throw her in the water?
Well, it's not that simple, Judge.
Well, come on.
Let me tell you.
If she drowns.
First is the floating test.
Yes.
You have to get some midwives, first of all. Do you know any midwives? Get a bunch of midwives. First, you check the witch for black marks on her body to see if she has black marks on her body. Then the sink or swim test, you tie rocks to their ankles.
Check.
And if they float, you have a witch trial. If they sink, you don't because they're dead. They
Do you
drown.
support the Salem witch trial? I mean, where are we going here,
I'm thinking
Jack?
it's time to bring it back. And then the midwives would strip the accused woman of all clothing.
Just women?
Well,
just women.
They
only
only
women?
accused women of being witches.
But okay, but in your new,
men
in
would
this
be
new era
warlocks.
Would there be male midwives?
Would there be?
Can there be male midwives?
Jack.
Can I get on with this? It's my bit, okay? when you're doing your radio show, Diane, you can do your bit.
Like Jack and Diane? That's our proposed radio show.
Yeah, I'm starting to rethink that. Then after they check for the black marks, they would prick the marks to see if they bled. If they did not bleed, then it was the mark of the devil. And then if all else failed, they had the Lord's Prayer test, where they had to recite the Lord's Prayer, and if they could recite it without shrieking, then they were not a witch.
Go ahead and do it, Louis.
We have time. Can we do this with Christina O'Donnell, do you think? Is there time?
Sure.
Do you think she'd submit herself to the Salem witch trial?
Jack Riccardi, 10 to 1, 550 KTSA.
Isn't that would make better TV than that crazy spot she's running, right?
Well,
how about that?
Are you saying that ought to replace Judge Judy?
I am serious. If you think you've got to deny that you're a witch, I think you should submit yourself to these tests.
Maybe she's trying to make herself relevant. I mean, this is national news. Maybe she's going out there. Everybody's talking about her. She's think of her name ID. This is a quest for name ID.
No, she's just trying to say, I am not this wild-eyed person that everybody else. So here, let me take this stupid thing that people are saying about me, and hey, I'm not a witch.
Well, that's what she should have said.
How
dumb.
Lou Dobbs. Can we talk about Lou Dobbs?
Thank you.
Speaking of witches.
What the heck happened here? Lou Dobbs is going to gather up the townsfolk with their pitchforks. We're going to go off. We're going to hunt down these illegal aliens. Except he's got a barn full of them. A barn full of them, Louis Barrios. They're living in the barn.
He went from being a nativist Republican to a pro-business Republican in one news story. He went from blaming businesses to blaming the government.
You love this story.
I love it.
For folks that haven't heard it, what's the revelation about former CNN host Lou Dobbs?
Well, he's married to a Hispanic woman. However, he has made his career on this broken borders bit that he made $30 million a year. Talking about how
a lot of people liked what he was saying, though, right?
Well, of course, he was speaking to the nativist faction of the Republican Party.
But then what happened?
Well, what happened was he got fired because all these Hispanic groups said, this is enough of this.
But in a way that almost made him more credible in the eyes of people who like him.
Right.
Like he paid a price for speaking the truth.
Until today.
What have we learned now for folks that have not heard this story?
Okay. He has been found that through a third party, he hired undocumented immigrants, and they lived in the barn where his $1 million horse was being kept. They lived upstairs to the horse, except it was 12 or so undocumented per room, so the $1 million horse had better living conditions than his employees that he said he didn't.
That was one nervous horse, though, with 12 people in that loft above the horse. He's probably hoping it would hold up.
That's exactly right. And so I love it. I couldn't happen to a better guy.
All right. I mean, it is amazing how many people sort of trip and fall over this issue, Steve Hilbig, politically. I mean, if you're going to be opining about it, and look, I think it's a legitimate position to take, but, before you worry about the speck in my eye, worry about the beam in your own, right?
Well, I was going to say that the whole world loves a hypocrite. Because if you're able to bring down a hypocrite, I think you make people's day. And you're exactly right. My gosh, don't be doing things like this.
So I think the Lou Dobbs for president bandwagon just pulled over to the rest area for a while. What do you think?
I think the Lou Dobbs on TV got pulled over
All right, Meg Whitman, the Republican candidate for governor of California. Now, this is an interesting story, because and I think more complicated or nuanced than the Lou Dobbs story. Here's a woman running for governor of California and doing very well, holding her own against Jerry Brown in a very Democratic state. One of her campaign planks is we got to do something about illegal immigration, and you basically can't run in California without saying that because it is a problem. Everybody on all sides of it agrees that it's a problem. You get this story that she had this housekeeper who worked for her for several years and apparently was illegal. She says, I did everything I reasonably could to satisfy myself that she was legal, so really the story is not about me, it's that she, this housekeeper, lied. The housekeeper gets the attorney there, Gloria Allred, who I don't know if that adds to your credibility or permanently drains you of credibility when you appear with Gloria Allred. But anyway, and Gloria Allred says we're going to sue her, and this is hypocrisy, and I'm curious. I'll be curious to see how this goes. Do the voters want you to reasonably try to be in compliance, or are the voters going to look at Meg Whitman and say, sorry, this is a deal breaker?
Well, it's still in doubt. We really don't know because the individual in the housekeeper wasn't just a housekeeper. Apparently, she was a member of the family for some 9 years and had been treated like a member of the family. So not
big
to
money
know,
too. They're paying her big money.
Absolutely, they make big money. I mean, Meg Whitman's a billionaire.
No. But I mean, this woman was not living in an impoverished or
not impoverished
exploited way.
No, and I don't think that's the point. The point really is that Meg Whitman knew that. How could you have someone living in your house for so long and not know this critical fact? Why didn't you do your due diligence? You would be governor of California.
So how much diligence do you do beyond asking the person to fill out a form and you've got the paperwork? And if they're lying to you, is that still on you?
You know, I think the point hasn't been made whether or not they can prove that she lied.
Well, yeah. I thought that she had a Social Security number that she filled out with the employment agency that turns out not to be a proper Social Security number. And so I'll go back to my point. Well, if she did everything she could, then she's not the hypocrite. But if it turns out that she knew, to Diana's point, and she is the hypocrite, she's, stick a fork in her, she's done.
But can you really figure that out? Are the voters really going to get to that? Or any of us really going to get to that between now and November?
No, I think what will happen is that people will act on their perception of what the facts are.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter what the facts are. It's
so
just
the
what everybody
true story
perceives.
Won't be known by Election Day.
Well, it may not. But even if the true story's out there, there's always going to be these other things where people would rather believe something that's not true than true because it fits their vision of the world.
I guess where I come down on this is, and I'm not a California voter, but I would look at it this way: I'm not going to vote for somebody who is exploiting people. I'm not going to vote for somebody who's importing them and putting them in his barn. I can vote for somebody who seems to have tried and failed, but tried to comply with the law. It seems like Meg Whitman tried to comply with the law. I think a better question for Meg Whitman would be, why did you self-fund your campaign to the tune of $120 million if you knew you had this problem? You should have known this was going to come up, and you should have done something about it besides firing her 2 years ago. You can't. I don't understand a woman that commits all of that money to what is a losing cause once this gets exposed.
But
right, and there's
that's
more
your
to the
perception.
story.
It's a losing cause. It's your perception that it's going to be the deal killer. And if she says, "I did everything I should. I'm not the hypocrite," and can get those facts out, she probably should have been better prepared to meet the story.
Well, okay,
but there's more to the story. And
that's what I'm saying.
It's not, Meg Whitman doesn't look at Social Security numbers herself, so she hires an agency to do this.
Right.
But the real story was, or so it said, is that she went to her and said, I'm not a citizen. I want to become a citizen. Help me become one. And that's when she was fired. That's supposedly a part of the story that's essentially critical. But also, she's trailing Jerry Brown right now. So.
Okay, but let me go back. So if to the hypocrite or not hypocrite, so if she truly did not know that the person was here illegally, and she does know that it is against the law to hire a illegal alien, then what would you do? If somebody comes up and says, "Hey, by the way, I'm here illegally, even though I told you before that I wasn't, or I had documents that I used that said I wasn't," what do you do at that time? If you continue to employ the person, then you knowingly violate the law.
Are you making the case for immigration reform?
I'm just simply saying that the fact that she terminated services when she found out that the person was here illegally doesn't make her the hypocrite.
That's what's in question. We don't know.
Well, but you were asserting that was the fact.
Well,
and I'm just saying, if that fact is true, that doesn't make her the hypocrite.
Well, the assertion is that she knew she wasn't, and when she went to her to seek citizenship, she was terminated. So that's the assertion. But and all of these are all unproven facts. This is just what we've been led to believe by the media.
Well, I wonder too, how are people really looking at this issue? We think we know what people are going to do with this, but don't people in California and Texas know that you wouldn't have any houses being built, you wouldn't have any landscaping being done, you wouldn't have anybody vacuuming and running the service industry at the hotels downtown if it wasn't for this stream of cross-border labor?
We all know that, but that's different than, is she a hypocrite?
No, but what I'm saying is, I think in a state where people know this is going on a lot, they're going to have maybe a different standard for judging how Meg Whitman managed this problem once it was brought to her, as opposed to maybe a state where this would be a very extraordinary circumstance. I've never heard of such a thing. And it's outrageous.
It's a very real circumstance in California. I'll give you an example.
It's a fact of life there.
But I go back to, when you talk about the election, it's going to be, is she being hypocritical about an issue? Because I come back to, I think people hate hypocrites. And so if she's being hypocritical about an issue, then that's going to be more relevant to the election than people's recognition that we need to have immigration reform, we need to have guest worker program, we need to solve a problem of taking care of having people come in and help us with our industry, but doing it in such a way within our immigration laws.
And here's where I think the hypocrisy may be on the other side. Gloria Allred can't have it both ways. If she wants to argue that it was wrong for Meg Whitman to have an illegal working for her, then it was right for Meg Whitman to fire that woman when she found out. Yet the whole reason Gloria Allred is working for this lady is because she's saying Meg Whitman wronged her when she fired her. Well, which is it? Yeah. You can't be both. So there's plenty of hypocrisy to go around.
Well, absolutely.
And since the voters won't know the truth, Diane, by Election Day, if ever, what do you think they'll do with this?
It seems right now that she's trailing in the election. It doesn't seem that she's going to be able to overcome this. It seems to be the central issue that voters in California are looking at. I just read the LA Times this morning.
When you consider the
which
state
is
California
sad,
is in.
Very sad. Across the board, they've had very serious failure of leadership. And but I read the LA Times this morning because I keep up with these things and in terms of current events. But California has a much bigger issue, and I think you're absolutely right when you say this is an issue that's very pervasive across the entire state. And I'll give you a quick example. I went to a car wash in California, a month ago, and I spoke to everyone in Spanish. And while I was there, I thought, I don't know that these employees are necessarily citizens. I don't know that they're, so it's everywhere you go in California. So absolutely, the state and the federal government needs to do something about this global issue, and it seems like it's affecting, it's hitting at the heart of people's
Putting
homes.
Jerry Brown back in charge of your state when your state is broke seems like an awfully self-sacrificial thing to do just to punish Meg Whitman.
I think the answer is a federal law on texting instead of
Thank
looking
you.
at the
Thank
real
you,
issue
Councilman
of comprehensive
Barrios.
immigration reform.
How about a constitutional amendment?
When
There
we
you
come
go.
back, the lightning round of Gang of Four on KTSA.